Okay, I'm going to shed some light on. There's that a little better, just enough light. If I go too light, I'm Irish, so I would need makeup or something if I went too light. It would look scary. So just enough light. There we go. I want to get on here to reprimand atheists once again. They could just be so rude, because they have a concrete and fixed idea involving classical science, and that's as far as it goes for their comprehension. Classical science, if you can't see it, it isn't real. And yet, so they're taking their own miracle of life for granted, because certainly they are beyond concrete as beings. We live and move and have our being as spiritual beings. But if you can't prove it to them, then in their concrete and simplistic way of thinking, then it isn't real, and that's fine. If that's how they want to interpret life. But then somebody else who can stretch their brain further and relays an experience, actual experiences that they've had, without even trying to stretch their brain before they were old enough to even start stretching their brain. And they're relaying experiences such as I have. And the atheists get back to me with these rude comments, these dagger comments of, atheists at least are searching for the truth, but you're not telling the truth, you're lying. I mean, that is just so ignorant. Because you don't have the same experience that I have, because you can't comprehend somebody else's experience, you call them a liar in their face. And I can't help it. I mean, if atheists consider themselves to be the moral population, but I haven't experienced atheists as moral people. That is not my experience. So to the atheist, you're a liar and a narcissist. At any rate, touche, right? Because you can't comprehend somebody else's experience. You think you have the right to be rude to them, to throw them down the stairs, and to degrade them in reputation, or to drug restrain them, because your interpretation of life experience is different from somebody else's. At any rate, to be fair, because I deleted one of my videos that was introducing this topic of my soul out of body experiences, the last I had to delete it because I was giving my whereabouts naively with my first video. And the very first video revealed my demographical area, which is not something that I want trolls to get a hold of. So my very first video also talked about the lunar eclipse. And I left that fact out of the last video that I made when I was talking about my experiences. And there's one video on here when I'm talking about these experiences in my sleep. Now, how is somebody able to talk about them in their sleep be lying? How could they be lying if they're talking about them in their sleep? So I used to make these videos when I was drowsy and falling asleep because I was having technological problems all day. So I was able to, recite it in my sleep by the end of the day, and finally got it up. But I did not upload it for the public. And eventually, maybe I will, so you can see that if I'm talking about these experiences in my sleep, then I could not possibly be lying. Anyways, the comment, faith believeth all things, you know, if you don't stop and think about what it means, it seems like a ludicrous statement. But now it makes me understand, when I come across rude people like that, um, faith believeth all things probably means that people of goodwill will, are open to considering other people's experiences as authentic, um, at, you know, in a way that at least they should try to make some sense of, instead of with a lack of charity, they would have the goodwill to express a certain amount of charity for that person's experience, and not necessarily just interpret it with a derogatory insult as a return. Like, oh, you need medical help, you need drugs, um, you're a liar, this type of stuff. That's the kind of, basically, if your reality is not as concrete as what an atheist's reality is, they have nothing but insults for you, because your reality doesn't fit into theirs. At any rate, so there was a concrete item in my experience of going soul out of body. And that concrete item, if it were a lunar eclipse and not Nibiru, the lunar eclipse certainly is a concrete, because it's the moon passing before the sun. Now on NASA, that's what they called it. They called it the lunar eclipse, December 30th, 1982. So I don't think that it was necessarily Nibiru. And so, anyways, yeah, I had seen that first while my body lay asleep as a bright red ball of fire in the dark night sky. And I traveled toward it. And as I traveled toward it, um, you know, it it grew larger and larger because I was drawing nearer and nearer to it. And then um, when I reached the summit, my soul had burst open in song with other souls. So I was pulled through several choirs of souls in song, and then my soul burst open in song, with the highest notes as I reached the summit. And then I approached a light who resisted my attempt to enter, and I landed back in my body within seconds, upon walking away from this light. And hard rock music filled my brain to wake me. I believe the hard rock music was the leftover noise from drawing so close to the lunar eclipse. And because they say the surface of the sun is like a myriad of hard rock concerts. And so I'm supposing that's probably what the leftover noise was about. And it filled my brain to wake me, and I sat up and I looked outside, and there was the same lunar eclipse that I had first seen when my soul was out of body. So that happened December 30th, 1982. And I always said it was at the turn of the year between December 1982 and January 1983. And within, the past few years or so, I looked it up on NASA to see if it was there, and sure enough, there it was, because people were telling me they were rude, like the atheist that just wrote in calling me a liar. And um, and so I looked it up, and I, certainly was not hallucinating, and they, as people thought that I hadn't really seen the eclipse. Now, um, the Monsignor believes me, and he believes that these, spiritual experiences happen quite a bit around lunar eclipse, when there's a prophecy regarding them and the turn of the age. So that's all I'm going to go over for right now, because I talked about other things, how the Pope repelled me and I was chastised, um, 6 months thereafter. And then 12 years down the road, the Blessed Mother of God appeared to me as a brunette woman with a white veil over her head. And then 6 years after that, I had the premonition of several, a few thousand souls, anyways, in the limbo space where I had been when my soul was pulled toward the lunar eclipse. And the Blessed Mother was lovingly watching over them. So I didn't understand what that was. It startled me awake, and a few hours later, I got a call from my carnal mother on Earth telling me to stay home because America had just been hit. So then this incident begat the New World War on Terra. Uh, the eclipse in my life was essential because it was the same era in history in which we had Pope John Paul II sitting on the papal throne. And this is when it is said that the church is in eclipse for important reasons in the Pope John Paul II era. So that's what I'm going to say for right now. Annoyed by hateful people that write in. I muted him, and faith believeth all things means people of goodwill are carefully consider all things and try to give other people the benefit of the doubt.